name is John Forrest. I'm going to walk you through a quick end-to-end demo of RapidCanvas where we're going to build a machine learning pipeline to predict loan default. So the first thing I do is create a project. This isolates the use case from other use cases in the environment. I'm able to collaborate and share with other users and have them work on it independently. But it sets up a nice clean canvas. And first thing we're going to do is add data. I'm going to import data. I can pull it in from GCP, Snowflake, one of 584 different connections, or I can just upload it from a local disk. In this case, I'm going to connect to Snowflake. And actually, I'm going to build the pipeline such that it reads from Snowflake. Let's just go with loan default. Reads from Snowflake and writes back to Snowflake. So I'll fill in the metadata and put in the SQL statement. And give the query a test. Okay, we can edit this query at a later time. We could put limit statements on it, joins and so on, filters. But as it is, I'm going to pull the whole table in and use that as the basis for my initial design. Okay, so now I have a data set on the canvas. It's linked to Snowflake. If I run this job in the future, the latest data set will be pulled from the Snowflake database. I can perform a number of different operations here. First one I'm going to do is have a look at the data itself. Okay, so you can see the size and shape of the data here, 5,000 rows, 27 columns, correlation matrix. I can see that annual income has a positive relationship with loan amount. You lend me more money the more I earn. It's got a negative impact on interest rate. More I earn, the lower my interest rate, and so on. So you can see the relationship between the parameters here. And I've also got a set of alerts. You can see things like there's a number of people who don't have mortgages, no real surprise there, but see, this one I might want to dig into. This annual income is highly skewed. It seems like that's quite a big amount of skew, 48 times. So I can jump into advanced analytics, and this pops out another tab, so I can leave this open and refer back to it. Shows me the alerts and so on, but here in the variables I can find annual income. And I can see that it goes from 0 right up to 6 million. So there's definitely some skew in that data. I can go and look exactly how that looks with extreme values. So I see the minimum reported income is $7,500. The maximum is 6 million. So you can see there's a few above 400,000. It's definitely something I might want to fix before I build a machine learning model on this data. So let's go and do that. Let's go back to the canvas. And now we're going to clean up this data and get ready to model. So I'm going to use something called an AI assisted recipe. This pulls in the data and gives me a conversational interface on this data. So in this case, I'm going to do a very simple operation. I'm going to remove rows, income is greater than 399,123. So I'll get rid of 400,000 of that. What's happening now is it sends this prompt and the schema of the data to a large language model. The large language model generates code, which we test, validate, and if it looks okay, we run it. So just to show you the difference, there are 5,000 rows, as we said, in the source data. In this intermediate data set, I'm now down to 4,992. So I've lost 8 rows, those 8 rows with data above 400,000. Other types of operations, if you look at the data, maybe I want to clean up, there's an employee length field here where I've got some kind of categorical variable, it's text, and I want to change it to numeric. So I want to replace the emp length column with numeric only values. Okay, it's sending the prompt and the schema, getting code. The code's being returned, and CLM length is now numeric. So that might have taken me a little while with regular expressions in Excel, and that couple of seconds it generated code, tested the code and ran the code. I can add this to the recipe. What this does is drop it back on the canvas. Okay, so data. And in doing so, it's built a code recipe which is doing both of those transforms. So if I go into the code, you can see the function. This recipe is now converted into code. Every time I run it, it'll do exactly the same thing. It can be audited. There's no interaction with the LLM. There's no additional cost the next time I run it. So it's fixed. In here, I can do more than just data transformation. So I can create new data sets, but I can also ask questions, create charts, get prompt suggestions, or build a model. So if I just ask a question, what is the average loan amount, and my bad spelling or stroke typing will be taken care of by the LLM. It gives me an answer of $14,166.53 is the average. If I want to plot loan amount versus annual income versus interest rate. Again, send the prompt and the schema to the LLM. I get code back, Python code back that I'm going to execute in the platform. I'm going to validate, execute, and then produce the result. So here I've got an interesting chart which is showing me annual income on the bottom, loan amount on the left. You can see that there's a nice line up here and a line along the top which suggests the set maximum for my loan is 35,000, and the typical limit on a loan is 50% of your salary. So there's a few higher than that, and I can zoom in and take a little look at those. And so there's one over here. Loan amount's 25k on a salary of 30k, so it's a little out of work. Okay, I can add. This is an interactive chart. Let me just add it to the recipe. Again, this is going to drop it onto the canvas, run it, and come out. You'll see the recipe runs, and it's going to generate the data set that I saved and this chart. So there's the clean data, and there's the chart. Just validate the chart's okay. As I say, it's interactive. I can zoom in on a slice. I can zoom in on a section. Go back to the start. And I now have a data set where I've removed the skew in the annual income, and I have set employee length to be a numeric value. I'm now going to build a predictive model, and I have in this data set loan status, which tells me whether or not this loan was fully paid off or whether it went into default, so charged off. It's telling me it's in default. So I'm going to use that to build a model. If I didn't know what model to build or what to do with this data, anywhere I see this orange AI guide, I'm able to go and ask questions. What kind of model could I build on this data set? And it'll send this information to the LLM. The LLM will give me a much more broad open answer than previously, where it's telling me it's doing specific operations on the data. Here it's looking at the data and using the LLM to give me some suggestions. So classification on loan status is the first thing it's telling me to do. So let's go and do that. Back to the canvas. I get to add to this data set this rapid model recipe. I specify the target, which is loan status, and it determines it's a binary classifier. You can see in here, let me just remove that. Let's leave it. Anomaly, so it's anomaly detection, binary classification, clustering, multi-class, and regression, but I can also do time series forecasting. Okay, so I'm going to save that and run the output. We can see it's an output data set. This is the input data set with a couple of columns added at the end. So this is the prediction that we've added. So this is created by the model, and it's the probability of it being paid off versus going into default. So we've added 3 columns to the data. This was done by a prediction from the model. We can actually make that prediction available as a service. Default 3, just do 3. Red this. This is just choosing which environment it's going to run in. I can make those different sizes and shapes. And it adds a REST endpoint which I can call from my application. Okay, I've got other information there, but we'll come back to it. So what I've got now is an end-to-end pipeline, reading from Snowflake, cleaning and prepping the data, creating a chart, building this binary classification model, generating output. I can run another code assistant recipe, and here I'm going to take probably the date of the loan, so issue_D, and I think there's an address field in there so I can match it back, and then I'm going to take these last 3 columns. So I want to extract issue date, address, if I can spell address, address, the prediction, whether it was fully probable to fully paid or charged off. Okay. Again, this sends this prompt asking me to extract those columns, and I get 4992 rows, only 5 columns. Add that to the recipe. Predictions. Save and run. And as it runs on the output, it's going to generate a data set that I want to write back to Snowflake. And to do that, I can come here and specify Snowflake connector. Table name is default prediction. Database was lab, schema was public, warehouse and row. Okay, and I can choose to append or replace. I'm going to append, and I can now save and export. So that's going to export this file out back to Snowflake. So wherever I run this pipeline, if I run the pipeline up here, it'll pull the data, score the data, and write it back to the prediction service. I can also schedule those jobs on periodic basis, so daily, weekly, or in whatever interval I choose, and have those run automatically. The other thing I'm able to do, so those are jobs, we talked about scenarios, settings, and information. There's the ability to create a data app. So I'm going to create a new data app on the model. I'm going to call that Explore Prediction of Default. And when I create that, it's going to take a few seconds to run. So while I'm waiting for that to launch, I'll actually add a second just to show you the other capabilities of the platform. I can create a data app that allows me to provide a Q&A, a chatbot Q&A on top of the data on the canvas. So the data I've created, any file set I've created on the canvas. I can upload an Excel or a CSV and ask questions of it. I can connect to Snowflake or MySQL or some other SQL data source and have a chat with the data in that database. I can upload PDFs and add PDFs, so let's do that. Or the prediction service, which I've got building in the background. So this is on application requirements PDF. And when I create that, when I go and run it, I can upload the PDF and then start chatting with that PDF. Okay, these apps take a few minutes to load. The one is the Explore the Data app. So I said earlier I was going to skip the model output. Here I've got the same model output, but with explanation. So here I can see the feature import induction, basically. More interestingly, I have the ability to run the first time I run this, it takes a few seconds to start the service up in the back end. Okay, just see what happens if I bump that interest rate up. What happens if we double the interest rate and give them an interest rate of 20%? Predict, again, it sends the data in with this change, and I can see the change in probability that interest rate is now. So it's dropped it by to predict for. I have the ability to do ad hoc predictions. I can pull a file in, score it, and download it. And I can give a business user that same Ask AI interface where they can create charts and ask questions of the data. What is the average loan amount, for example? Operates in the same way, sends the prompt off to the LLM.